like the final benefit here of the B flat chanter is, which is the most important, is it allows us to interface with the rest of the musical world, which is like, I feel like overall, and I think Scotland is way ahead of the curve at this point. But even talking with Ross Miller, who's regularly integrating with other musicians, as part of his livelihood and stuff. I mean, he's using the B flat chanter to do that. But but the biggest reason here is being able to play with other instruments is how you learn and how our art form can develop and become influenced by other things and actually press forward. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest bottlenecks that we see in the pipe band art. It's the same thing every year. And part of it's because if I want to go play with a jazz pianist, the first half hour of that is going to be like trying to figure out how we can play in tune together. Whereas if we just play in concert pitch, that becomes a lot more reasonable to do, I think.
Yeah, I don't really think it's a good idea. I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen.
I think so too.
Because there are so many educated and good musicians playing in pipe bands that interface with other instruments out with the band. We don't need to sell the idea to them. They already know. And there is a hunger, I think, for the pipe bands to play with. There always has been, to play with other instruments, and be accepted in the orchestra as a genuine instrument. Whereas at the minute, we actually ostracize ourselves out of it by playing this crazy pitch. And
exactly.
Not only that, if you actually, I have some experience recording well on instruments, and the bagpipe, when you sit down with a sound engineer, he will tell you straight away that the Highland bagpipe, the pipe chanter, cuts through everything. It is a headache for them in the mix.
And
microphones
microphones aren't designed to record music that's tuned in between concert pitch notes either. Like they're just they're not made for that.
Yeah, but even the actual frequency of it, if you listen to the Uilleann pipe, there's a mellowness to it, and it can sit in with other instruments, and it can blend in and become one sound. The Highland bagpipe will always be the Highland bagpipe surrounded by other instruments. It rarely becomes part of an overall ensemble in terms of tonality. And that's because of the piercing frequency and the pitch. Even when it's tuned to the same pitch as the other instruments, it is such a narrow... I would say we've almost separated the chanter from the drones in many ways. I mean, the first thing you notice when you drop down to 4/6/6 is your chanter tonally submerges into your drones much more, and your drones have a bigger interface when the harmonics start to swim round about you. They're much more defined. That's the biggest thing, and that's the thing that should be exploited, because that is the organic sound of the bagpipe.
Yeah, I mean, we're in agreement with this, and I think it is inevitable. But why don't we just do it? And the arguments I've heard against it have really just been, it's never going to happen. Which, if you look closely, is not an argument. And B, like, I don't wanna. That's really. I mean, I haven't heard any solid reasons why this shouldn't just obviously be the way that it is. But
we have, as I say, we have a lot of players within the band who currently run a dual pipe box where they have a B-flat chanter and they have drone extenders and they have the band chanter. Some of them have two separate bagpipes. So the dual culture already exists. It's not new.
Right.
And all the people who are doing that are at the better end in terms of the quality of player.
Agree.
The people that are doing it, right? So it wouldn't be that difficult to say we're going to have a competition and the legislation is B-flat, 4/6/6, or you'll lose points. If you come in at 4/7/2, you're going to drop points. So you need to have a clean legislation. Say everybody has to play at that pitch. Yeah. This is not
just try it.
Crazy.
Yeah, we should just try it.
Half of your band have got these chanters anyway.
And then the other thing, I think there are logistics involved, but it's nothing that's not easily dealt with. Like, so I think the first logistic would be, how do you monitor this? So, it would have to be the responsibility of, one of the judges, maybe piping judge 1 or something, to actually do some sort of check with a tuner of some kind as to what pitch the band is playing at. But that's not rocket science. That can easily be done. It's also something that could be done after the fact. If band A catches wind that band B was playing at the wrong pitch, you could listen back to it would need to be a digital recording, but theoretically you could do it that way, like retrospective as well. And then the other,
go
ahead.
You could do it the final tune.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I mean, are there stewards that are that could be trained to to get the pitch or something, or something like that? I don't know, but it's not that outrageous to think about. And then the other thing, I do think you would want to make it so it's like 466 at basic in like a stable environment, like room temperature, such that if the temperature did get really hot, the acceptable pitch would go up to 469, so that you wouldn't have to reset your band, if the sun came out, because that's not reasonable.
You'd have a tolerance.
Yeah, like a tolerance. Yeah, exactly.
A high and low tolerance. So basically, you would need a big screen and a big tuner on that big screen, and each band comes in at the final tune, and we take a reading, and they say, "Yep, you're within the tolerances."
Right.
And if they're not, you can say you're out with the tolerances. You need to do something about it, or you can go on with that, but you drop. You'll suffer for that. There'll be a penalty, in other words.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, it's difficult to institute a penalty in our current judging system, though, where it's just ranked first to last. And that's a different That's a different can of worms, I think, to talk about like a points-based system. But that would be difficult to do. But I also think the honor code would prevail. I don't think, I think if everybody just agreed that we're, going to play at 466, and then if it's a hot day, maybe it goes up to a certain amount or something like that. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's crazy.
Well, the penalty, when I say penalty, I don't mean taking points off. At the final tune, if you're above the top tolerance level, you don't go on.
There you go.
You're not getting in.
Cut at the line. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like, and that's a culture we're used to, because we cut players at the last minute if they're tonally not right. So, and that'd be a sobering thought for every pipe major. If you say, don't sail close to the wind here, guys. If you're saying it's between 464 and 470, for example, or 469 or whatever, I think the first year you can leave a big tolerance. But don't sail close to the wind and come in right at the top end, because there's a danger the sun will come out and you're not getting to play because you'll go over.
Right. Yeah. I think some basic research might need to be done there, where a person is playing or several people are playing a 466 bagpipe in various conditions, and just taking notes as to what the tolerances should be, because it's, if it's the direct sunlight, in Scotland, it is challenging, right? Like the difference between cloud cover and when the sun comes out can be 15 degrees Fahrenheit anyway. I don't know Celsius, but like it can be a big swing in temperature, and the pitch is going to change when that happens. That's it's going to change at least a little bit. Every pipe major's nightmare, is when the sun comes out right as you're going on.
But we tend to operate a system at the minute where pipe majors, and we always have done, the sun comes out and the pipes get brighter and the pitch goes up, and we run around tempering Fs and high As and Ds.
Yeah.
And then we reset the tone, and all these dark notes, we stop them going too high, and then we go on and compete. And then you take the pipes out the next week and you have to lift the tape off these notes because that sun's not there. So your actual approach would need to change. If you were competing and you had set at 466 and it was getting very warm, you would have to only accommodate your drones and play the minimum so that you're not driving that pitch up.
Right.
At the minute, the bands are deliberately, if the sun comes out, they're playing and letting some of the notes go sharp and sorting them very quickly and going on to compete.
Yeah.
It would just mean the priorities change. You would need to be targeting for not the highest pitch you could get, but to be hit the target.
Yes. Right. Without, but I think the important thing is that you don't have to reset your band on the day, so if it is hot, the maximum pitch allowed does go up, that has to be
that
that
could
way.
be temperature based. You could say if a temperature is up in the 80s, then the tolerances are bigger.
Right. So it's almost like you don't even, it's almost like maybe whoever is measuring the pitch also has like a reading as to what the actual ambient temperature is outside. So you could sort of cross-reference, Suffice to say, the logistics would need to be sorted out. But I don't think it's anything, I don't think it's anything too crazy. Whereas right now, bands that do manage to get a higher pitch tend to, not always, or certainly traditionally, they've tended to have a slight advantage over a band who has a low pitch.